I think the Pittsburgh Steelers just telegraphed their NFL draft plan. And if this isn't a telegraph, I think this borders on incompetence at the wide receiver position. What's up? This is Sports Talk Steelers. I'm your host, Sean, giving you daily, impartial, kind of an outsider's view on Pittsburgh Steelers football on the daily. So hit the subscribe button. Would love for you to join us. So let's talk about Deebo Samuel first. The guy just went to the Commanders for a fifth-round pick. That's it. And I'm covering the Pittsburgh Steelers from an impartial place. But man, if I was a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I would be incredibly frustrated. I'd actually be angry because the only explanation that makes this even close to intelligent from the outside is that the Steelers are going to turn to the NFL draft and a particular player that just emerged, and that's Texas's Matthew Golden. I'm going to talk about what he just did at the combine in just a moment and his fit with the Steelers. So let's kind of get back to Deebo Samuel first. So why did the Pittsburgh Steelers miss out on Deebo Samuel when all he cost was just a measly fifth-round pick? And this is a story given citing inside sources with the Pittsburgh Steelers that just came out on Penn Live. Let's check this out. And this story outlines the apparent reasons that they missed out on him. And really, it's becoming apparent that they didn't even try to get him. So the reasons given by the Pittsburgh Steelers, one source says that the Steelers didn't want to take on the significant salary of wide receiver until they know their working budget and their quarterback. I mean, that's the motivation for not going aggressively after Samuel in a manner like the Commanders did. And on top of that, it's also cited that the Steelers did have concerns about Samuel's injury history in his 2024 season. I mean, that actually has a grain of truth to it. That is a valid concern. But this guy has just been a stud his whole career. He's done it over and over and over. And just kind of looking at his playing style, and especially if they're going to keep Justin Fields, I was like, dude, this guy looks like a Pittsburgh Steeler. Why aren't they trying to bring him into town? And then in addition to that, I think the Steelers are being cheap. The 49ers didn't want to eat any of his salary, so Samuel would have had $17 million of salary coming to him this year. The Steelers would have had to eat it all. But in today's NFL, frankly, is that a big salary for a wide receiver? I think it's kind of silly. If you look at last year, Deebo, he had over 600 yards last season, dealt with a calf strain for much of the year. That limited his explosiveness and not a lot. But if we're watching the NFL, we know the kind of player that he is. And I think it's ridiculous that $17 million to bring him into town wasn't something that the Steelers are willing to do. I think it's just being cheap. But the Pittsburgh Steelers, they might be pivoting, and I think this is the only thing that makes sense. They're going to draft a wide receiver, and I think they found their next wide receiver of the future, and this is at the scouting combine. The guy's blazing fast, Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas. He's been linked to Pittsburgh Steelers in a variety of mock drafts, and actually he's been linked to the Steelers in the second round. But I think this performance in the 40, he just ran a blazing fast 4.29 second 40. And I think that's going to push him into the first round. And I think if the Steelers want him, or if they want any receiver for that matter, that's worth his salt, they're going to have to use that number 21. And I think, honestly, if you're going to pass on all these free agent wide receivers, I think you're pushing yourself into a corner if you're going to fix this offense. You got to use that number 21 on a wide receiver. And I think Golden is the number one candidate for that because he's not just a speed guy. I mean, he's got a lot of juice, but his game isn't predicated on speed. If you've watched him play, he looks really twitchy and athletic, and that's during his time at Texas. But there's just a reason that he should go 21. It's more predicated on finesse. He separates really well. He wins with his feet, and then he uses his speed. He's fast enough to take advantage of open space, get yak yardage. He can play on the boundary. He competes really well against press coverage, and he actually plays with a way bigger catch radius than his 5'11", 191-pound body would suggest. I think the guy's a complete receiver, and that's kind of the guy that the Pittsburgh Steelers should target because last year he compares very favorably with Brandon Ayuk. That's a guy that the Pittsburgh Steelers were targeting last year. Didn't get him, but Golden has the ability to play the Z. And I think he would pair really well with George Pickens. He's going to be able to take the top off the defense. And then you have a guy like Roman Wilson that could really develop into that number 3 in his second year with the team. And then Austin, he really showed out last year, but he is not a number 1. He is not a number 2. He slots in perfectly as a 3 or a 4. And then you've got tight end extraordinaire Pat Freiermuth. And then you've got some massive tight ends to pepper in. I think with the addition to Golden, you could definitely add what you need on offense and still keep your cap friendly. So let's kind of look at what he did last year. Golden had a really strong year, 987 receiving yards, 9 touchdowns, and this was only on 58 receptions. Crazy, 17 yards per catch, and that's elite. And it's kind of funny at the combine, he was going back and forth with his teammate, Isaiah Bond. They were both talking trash, who was going to set the 40-yard dash record. But, man, Golden ran a 4.29, and that's actually absolutely ridiculous. We're looking at a strong combine performance. The guy interviews exceedingly well. He's just lightning quick. He's just quick and nasty, and I think the Steelers would do themselves very, very well by drafting him. It might be met with some skepticism. There might be some other guys that you would prefer. Let's talk about that in the comments. Do you think Matthew Golden is the ideal addition to this Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver room if they simply refuse to do anything significant on the free agency market? And if they weren't even willing to put in a meaningful offer for just a stud in Deebo Samuel, I don't know if the team is cheap. I don't know if they're just telegraphing what they're going to do in the draft by drafting a wide receiver. But man, something's got to be done, because going into the season with what is there right now is, at the very least, it's incompetent, in my opinion. You guys let me know what you think. This is a young channel. You're helping me grow it. Can't wait to continue to cover Pittsburgh Steelers news on the daily. And I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.